All right, well, I'm Piero, and I'm live here late. Though I've been thinking of changing the time actually to be more like 5 or 6 instead of 4. And but I've also was thinking of putting it on a different day, but there's difficulties with that um, uh, as well. So anyway, I almost did make when I was busy for until around 6:20. I was wondering whether I do this. I'm not sure I have the energy. I've been some other things, real life things on my mind to take care of. But I have, and I do like to at least get in. So even if it's going to be, better late than never, they say. But I'm not necessarily expecting people to notice I've just randomly put this up or anything. But on the other hand, I use this tool for doing quick uploads, so it's all the same to me. I did post the link in case anybody does see and want to pop in. Should be posted in the comments. It's still like it won't allow me to do comments while the video is live anymore. And it says chat disabled, but I believe there is chat. Oh no, but it's not chat on the page. I have no idea why. It says chat disabled, but I have over here it says it can chat. Yeah, enable live chat. And so anyway, yeah, the laughing witch stuff goes on. I have to admit I will be interested to see that. I don't think it leads anywhere particularly good at this point. I certainly would be interested to see Thunderfoot get a chance to speak for himself. He should contact that reporter and give his side of the story. I think that would be entirely appropriate and interesting. So that's ongoing. I'm going to keep watching that, but I don't tend to talk about it all the time. But it's led to these related issues, or has it led? No, I guess this is just from what we're already talking about and sort of the feminism. Quintica and I have been talking a lot about that. We got to this question of ideologies. And basically, I had one of my formative experiences in my life was that from second grade until around seventh grade, I went to 2 schools a year. Well, actually, from first to seventh, I went to 2 schools a year except for second grade. And when I attended for 1 year, my grandmother was a teacher, and I went to her school. So because my mom moved a lot. So I was always the new kid, and I learned a lot about people and sociology. I mean, one thing that became clear to me from a young age was that when you show up at a new school, I mean, you're the same person you were just a few weeks before. In my case, I was a new kid 6 months before, and then I'm going somewhere else. I go somewhere else. And I saw this enough that, I knew I wasn't changing that fast for how different people's reception of you are. And as I look into this, and now as an adult and having studied lots of things, like we all have, psychology and just experience of learning how people are, it's clear to me why that was the case. And I had figured this out during childhood, that more important than you is the them, that group, and what's the intrigue in there? What's the drama that's been going in there? Who likes who? Is there a guy that feels similar to you that likes a girl, and he's just going to think the girl's going to like you? Do they like smart kids? Do they hate smart kids? Do they, are they scared of outsiders, or do they love outsiders? And it's like, oh, tell us something from the outside. And there's certain patterns, of course, to how people are. But I really always found that there's more uniqueness, because it really depends what the drama history is and what moment of history it is. And I attribute this to groupthink. Similar thing I noticed that, people act quite differently in groups than they do when they're alone, because I don't really do that. I have the same opinions and whatnot, and I'm happy to be the ombudsman and tell the group I'm in that they or we've done something wrong and all this kind of iconoclastic stuff. And most people are not that way, right? And I came to loathe groupthink and really hate it and want to stop our society from becoming groupthinky. But then I realized it's inevitable evolution, that we are becoming sort of Borg-like. And the people that, so like I am like a eukaryotic cell that's still a single-celled organism, like a paramecium or an amoeba. And other human beings are like eukaryotic cells that are starting to form into multi-celled bodies. If it has, you could say it's already happened, but I think it's, our society is at the level of a slime mold. Certain things make it look like a single organism, but it still resembles more like a community or colony, but I think it's inevitable that it will get more and more. And part of that I sadly realized in my 20s was that, my late 20s, was that, conformity was going to be a thing. And really what we needed, those of us that want to individualists, is to realize that, okay, society still provides an environment for us in which we can be an individual, like symbiotic organisms. And we will have to learn to cooperate. One thing is I had to be less disgusted by pop culture, When I was young, I hated pop culture, I had just loathed Michael Jackson, the older one. The 5-year-old I thought it was fine, and he was so popular, and I was the kind of kid I wore a button with everybody's loving him with his face on it and just a circle crossed out and stuff. And I just loathed pop culture. And, but now I see, hey, no harm, no foul. Sure. Why not? And by the way, it's not that I don't like B movies and stuff. That's not pop culture. It's not the mainstream. The mainstream's what bugs me. I love Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Toxic Avenger, and I saw the first Evil Dead. But now I don't hate it so much. It's like, well, okay. And I can even see the talent of some of these people that I think are wasting what talent they have. And I think a lot of it that still, is a bit disgusting is associational logic. But to a certain degree, there's certain human beings that are going to follow the associational logic. But none of us individuals should do that. Certainly nobody talking philosophy or logic or any significant communication should be allowed to use this, what I call a associationist or associational logic, which is what it is basically a methodology or an ideology, or these are all three different things: methodology, ideology, and then this associational logic. All right. Now, these are ways that people can come to a conclusion. You start off wondering, what should I do? Or what does this mean? Or whatever it is that you're trying to answer. And you can use a methodology, you can use an ideology, and people use this associational logic, which is they decide what they supposedly believe, what they should do, and what the answer to their question is, based on the alliances that will possibly or actually allow them to form with other people with whom they want to associate, or if it will allow them to sever an association that they wish to sever. And in their mind, this is thinking. They are moving their thoughts around. In my mind, it's like you just walk on, it's like painting by numbers or something. Where did the ideas that you're associating with come from? Certainly not that process. All right. So this really is how the groupthink works, and you could see this all the time. It's very easy. This analysis, it reveals, I'm sure, will work for other people if you just look at it for these ties. When you see somebody do something irrational, go see if there's an associational reason that they would have made that decision. And if there is, look at the associations, follow the associations, and you'll find out what the person is trying to do, or has done possibly. Sometimes these associational networks become quite valuable. Now, in the low-watt fame of internet discussions, the power networks are pretty pathetic, really not worth worrying about. I'm not going to, I'll investigate the associations to lead me to George Soros or it's like, why were there medical marijuana laws all over the country last couple of years? What? Oh, George Soros, yeah, because he actually there's a power network, so these associations can be important to know. So, and discussing this with Quintica, doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. I mean, he doesn't get the ideology thing. He doesn't get why you wouldn't think associationally. He's an example of Quintica, you might be watching. So you use this example of severing association with the pedophile. You find out some guy that you knew, thought was okay or whatever. It turns out to be a pedophile, and you'd sever that association. Yeah, I wouldn't do it because of people think there's a link. I would do it because it disgusts me, and I would turn him into the cops as well, if I had the information to know that. But somebody that does it associationally because it's like, I don't want to be thought of the kind of person that associates with pedophiles, well, then the person might even be falsely accused. You might know he's falsely accused. You'd still have to sever that tie, because associational logic is all about who other people think you're associated with. And people that think this way, they think all feminists are the same, or all of anything are the same. And when you say, well, not all women are like that, or, well, not all men are like that, oh, well, not all this are like that, they go, oh, I'm tired of hearing that, oh, I'm sick of hearing that, as if they are all. You're hearing it because it's always true. No group of a category is really all the same people, and no group of people that say they're all in the same club really think alike. They hide all their differences and change some of their opinions and forget things that were important to them, so that whatever is supposed to be important to them in that ideology or group, just whatever the mores of that group are, they conform, and it's not entirely successful. I could still tell that they're actually individuals pretending to be cells, pretending to be exactly right, pretending to play a role and get a better role and everything like that. And there could be some organic beauty to that, except that we're really seeing the behavior of slime molds. And if you've ever seen this thing where they put resources like sugar or some food on a big table in the locations of the cities and the major ports, and slime molds grew, and then they grew slime mold on this table, and the slime mold created highways, more or less where our major highways are. And they're like, ooh, look how smart the slime mold is. And it's like, no, look how stupid the humans are. We're performing on the fucking cognitive level of a slime mold. That fucking sucks. So I think that's probably a pretty good indication of where we are, but it's definitely becoming more conforming. So my issue as an activist, besides the fact that just war is damaging and all of these problems that are of an issue I believe are traceable to the history of war, and it's totally not necessary, and it's obviously not necessary, and I could debate that, but it's obviously not necessary to blow things up and make things worse. There are actual solutions to problems. Use engineering and planning. Maybe it is rocket science, but it's like we could do that too. We can manage rocket science too. So, but besides the war issue, is just that basically, I think we're going to have a big brother society technologically. They're going to know everything we're doing and so on. People will automatically be doxxed or whatever. We're going to be exposed to each other, and we just need the right to do things. We've been speeding our cars, and we didn't care that the speed limit would seem too low because it's better that there is some speed limit, and and so I'll just push the speed limit a little bit. And we can have rules, and there's room for an underground economy, and there's to let off a little bit of the steam of if we get a law wrong, like let's say we make prohibition and people can't drink alcohol, and people are like, well, right or wrong, I mean, we don't go for that. They could do an underground. We're getting to a point where that underground won't be possible. Your car is going to be driving itself, or even if you get to drive it, why would you want to? But anyway, it's not going to speed, and you will actually have to drive 25 miles an hour on that road to your house. And then the speed limits better be right then, because then it's going to be annoying, because that's going to be micromanagement. And so far now we've gotten away with laws that pretend they're micromanaging, but there's just room to bend. And that flexibility we've used that. Okay. Any remnant of our freedom is due to that flexibility. Right. So, we need to have a society where people's basic rights are understood and respected. And that'll never happen with an ideology. An ideology is a dogma. It's a set of ideas already created with answers, and from which answers can be generated by having certain positions on key ideas. And so it'll spit out ideas, and I don't use those. Those are lame. That's for morons. It's like you went down to Walmart and got a plug-in for, I need to have some ideas, I guess. In reality, the human brain is irrational. It can do its own experiments, and it should be. You should all be doing experiments on things that are of interest to you. You can figure things out yourself. And so I don't use an ideology. I use a methodology. That's what skepticism is. It's a method for continuing to reflect on things. If something seems absolutely certain, something like the law of cause and effect, it's an absolute axiom. How can it not be? There are tools in skepticism for you to doubt that, so that you can reflect and figure out how it might not be so simple, right? So that's one tool to keep reflecting. But there's also the other tools, which are basically, Piro Vela said, you assent to what's apparent to you through your senses. We are information processing, and we can move around and collect information from where we want, right? We can move around. So we have will in that, whether it's free or an illusion. It's a thing that allows us to go scan information where we want. So we can collect new information. We can remember, but the memory is not so great. We can write down, and we can read, and we can make certain kinds of very easily tracked statements, basically numerical measurements, because then it's like, you might 12, and you do it the next time and it's 11 millimeters, and then it's 12 again. But there's a little wiggle room in the number you get out. But when you read it, it's not hard to remember what that number means. That's the measurement that I took at that time. And it's all about keeping close track on just sense perceptions. That's what experiments are. Experiments are, you set things up in a way that you can keep track of what you perceive of it, describe it, and then you can redo it. And you can look for other measurements and predicting, guess what those readings would be. And it's the same thing as if you just did it and watched it and didn't watched it and didn't watched it, but by recording it, you can convey it to somebody else. And of course, we've found that doing numerical abstractions, making abstract statements by using statistical processing of information, which requires turning information into numbers, that is super useful. So we have this methodology where if you wonder, is the guy guilty or not, an ideology will try to find out. For example, often, an ideology could be anything, but most ideologies, for example, most dogmas will tend to try to figure out what kind of person it was, and if they're the kind of person that would do that, and then figure out if they are that kind of person, then they go to the place that kind of person goes and gets treated like that person kind of gets treated. But a skeptical epistemology is like, well, what is the definition of the law that is alleged to be broken? or the situation that is alleged to be a particular way? What are the criteria to determine if that situation is taking place? Can we find those criteria in the evidence of the situation that's being described a particular way? And if you can, then you come to a conclusion, and it's a methodology that has led to that conclusion, a way of thinking and collecting evidence. Basically, the methodology from ancient skepticism on to now, we have new words, but Sextus was right on in how the human mind is actually working. We got senses, half of them are, we don't know which ones are illusions or not. We see faces in the clouds and all kinds of shit, but there's ways through logic and comparing one idea to another, which is what rationality means. Rationality means comparing, taking a ratio, which thing's bigger, and by making all of these comparisons with logic and ultimately numerical logic and statistics, you can get signal in the noise. You can discover that the face you see in the cloud is being contributed by your imagination, and you still see the face, and it doesn't affect your thought about the cloud. It doesn't make you think there's a God in the cloud looking down at you, which is what you used to think. And this is the method that was adopted by natural philosophy, not because natural philosophers were actually skeptics themselves. They were all different kinds of dogmatists. But the lingua franca of convincing is skepticism. Because once I show you the evidence in such a way that you can go recollect the evidence for yourself and make sure that I didn't make a mistake, then everybody, even dogmatists, have to adjust their thinking. And the fact is, dogmatists do adjust their thinking. They adjust quite a bit. Dogmas evolve over time. Christianity evolves over time. It changes. And it changes from place to place, changes from year to year. And so just the whole idea of these ideologies that think that they're like this rock solid foundation and I need something to be true to, something reliable. They don't like skepticism. Skepticism doesn't know all enough of everything. But they're changing their system to accommodate evidence generally that other dogmatists either show them or the skeptics. Now that skepticism, epistemology, it doesn't even matter that whether most scientists consider themselves skeptics or not, or understood skeptical philosophy. They're using the skeptical epistemology, which is a methodology, not an ideology. And that's why it's successful, and why it is so successful, and why it will continue to be successful, and why ideologies will continue to crumble and decay back into the swamp while we build the next level of human society, whatever it's going to be beyond slime mold. And now, I don't intend to become a conformist, but I want that society to be one that I can be symbiotic. I don't want it to be a fascist society that, I'm rounded up in. So I want it to be a cooperative society where if I'm productive and not a criminal, that's considered enough for me to coexist in that society while I still get to be an individual, for example, and work from my loft and up in the boondocks or whatever. So, all right. So, so this is what I think I've done this a couple times. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm done. I'm going to close the room unless somebody comes in. But I'm going to take a quick break before I do that. And I don't expect anybody to come. Oh, I guess there are some people watching right now. If any of you guys want to come in, now would be the time to do it. Okay, no. Not important thing over there. So was there anything else we were talking about? There was the ideology thing. There's something about Contica and the feminism thing. Like, he's just not getting, why would I defend? It's like atheism, right? when the YouTube atheism started, I'm like, well, that's good that people are being atheists now out in the open. Because I mean, my whole life, people weren't really doing that in the U.S. Even in California, it was difficult, for example. You know, certain groups. But in general, like, you know, and our politicians can't. So I thought, well, that's okay. But I didn't like their basic trolly nature of how they did it. You know, they followed the find somebody my group can call an idiot. I think I said this the other day, and then call them an idiot. You know, it's just basically find the village idiot and then laugh while you pee on him and stuff. And so I didn't really like that. But am I supposed to disassociate myself from atheism, which I've been my whole life, because of a bunch of 20-year-olds, Thunderfoot, Hard Case, Cat Mowassam, because they're dominating what atheism is, this association. I'm supposed to worry about that? No, I'm an individual. I'm responsible for my own actions, and to a certain degree, my commentary on other people's actions. But I don't just have to, out of the blue, because that guy wears a black and gray striped shirt, that I better disassociate myself from him. Oh my God, Trump's wearing a shirt like this. Well, he would never, but because it's basically a long John's undershirt, right? But I like it. But anyway, I should disassociate. Ben Carson's wearing a shirt like this. I better disassociate myself so people don't think that I'm an insane neurosurgeon. Doesn't work like that for me. I'm an individual. And you guys lecture the feminists and SJW on these individualism issues, like Sargon made that collectivism and individualism video, which I would like. I wish I had time to go over that. And you're just doing so associationally. You're not individualists. If you use this associationist logic, which I'm happy to define more for you, but I mean, it is my own theory, so I haven't really, it's not one I've ever tried to, you know, I've brought it up over the years here, but I use this. I look for this, and I know that these logical relationships are out there because I'm an expert in logical relations, and I know one when I see one. And there's ways to establish these correlations. And plus, we as children, we will know situations that people really do make decisions based on how it associates them in the group, separate sometimes from whether they really believe in the action. They'll tease people so that other people will think they're cool and things like that, that they wouldn't have teased themselves. So we know it happens, and I made a study of it. And when I see that kind of reasoning, I know that's impossible for that to be a true individualist. It might be somebody that thinks they're an individualist, right? But it can't be, because that the individualist is specifically, the meaning of that is someone that does not think that way, that you get to think for yourself, and you do not have to come up with your ideas based on how it looks associationally, right? And then, yeah, I'll tell you, you pay the price if you live this way. There are not as many big puppy piles of aren't we all great that you get to lie in. But I'm an individual. That whole feeling warm and fuzzy and safe because you agree with the people around you is disgusting to me. I mean, it's like, no, I don't feel that way. And never. When I'm in a group and comfortable, it will, because there's diversity in the group. And if the group starts to, you know, go off its hinges and misbehave, I'll be the first one to say it. And that's not an associational reaction. That's an individualistic reaction. So, you know, I'm not trying to cast an aspersion and say you're not. Everybody actually is an individual, but we're talking about individualists that celebrate this as the concept of what we're trying to achieve with liberty. Liberty is the freedom to be and act like an individual, and to have minimal sets of guidelines like not steal, no violence against others, and beyond that, go ahead and wear a dress if you want, or go ahead and you're free, no matter what the associations. We restrict how damaged you are by them. And of course, it is going to affect what kind of social situations you fit in, but it only excludes me from situations I don't want to be in, right? So it improves my life because It just makes it quicker that, I don't end up in those little, well, sometimes I do. I mean, I ended up being a part of the community of Daily Kos, but again, that one broke up over feminism as well. And Kos said the feminists are all, basically sanctimonious women's study set, he called them, and whatnot. And there's a big purging, and Kos is basically former Republican, interviewed with the CIA while he was starting that blog. Interesting. For like 6 months or more, if not more. And that one hurt a little bit, because I did feel at that point, because what had happened then is when I lived in the city and was politically active and getting out of the city, it's like, well, it's really hard to be politically active. You can write letters and stuff, but what can you really do? And then online activism, it's like, well, you could even be in Hawaii, you could be wherever. And I phone banked for candidates in Oregon, as part of a national effort from Hawaii. And there was a lot of, and I felt really good about that also, because it started off like a broad coalition that I really thought I fell for it. I thought people were going to embrace their differences and figure out common strategy. And that didn't happen. What happened was what normally happens. The factions grew, some got purged. Right? And eventually Daily Kos just became a part of the manufacturing consent machine. It's just a well-controlled flak machine, and very cliquish. It's entirely full of associational. It's totally taken over by the associational thing. And in my experience, most communities end up getting taken over with associational purism, and a bad kind of person that I really dislike comes in and has influence. A really fake kind of concerned trolley kind of person, manipulative little common sort of person that is like some synapse in the associational thing. And as I said, though, I think, well, okay, now if I create organizations, I'm going to realize that this happens to them, and that'll just be a part of it. And it's probably wise to include apoptosis in the design of any organization that you create, like the old saying, have a revolution every 50 years or something. You don't want a revolution, but you need to have a way to have a new generation and an evolution, obviously, because this is just these groups start off with real ideas from creative people, and everybody's kind of creative, and then they just sort of fossilize and become stone, frozen, like a monument. So, oh, well, I guess that'd be my ticket to go.